First.
You're a technician now.
There you go. Hey, music lovers. I'm Byron with Musical Miles Podcast. I am here with Muzzie Braun, the Muzzie Braun.
You know, there's probably more of them, but I don't know.
I doubt it. I doubt it. But we are here in Bone, Idaho at Steel and Joe's Bone. And this is where the blacktop ends and the Wild West begins. Literally, the road just ended right up here, right?
Yeah, it's, we were driving up here and I asked Jake how we got here, and he said, well, Yogi Berra said, if you get to a fork in the road, take it. And we did, and here we are in Bone.
Yeah, Yogi had some great ones, didn't he?
Oh, yeah.
I know you're a big baseball fan, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But I wanted to thank you for taking time to visit with us. You're playing here tonight, and you've played here before.
I have.
Yeah. This is a great little venue, isn't it?
Oh, it's wonderful. Yeah. I mean, it's nice. Yeah.
You know, our whole thing for this podcast is to help promote artists, the music. It's all about live music for us, but it's to help venues like this also, because you know there's people in Idaho Falls, 20 miles from here, don't know this is up here.
Well, there's not a lot here other than the store and the bar and the restaurant, so if you don't know where Bone is, you got to search it out.
Yeah, you got to find it. And so they've done a great job up here. They've brought a lot of good live music up here.
Mm-hmm.
And they've cleaned it up. It's really a cool venue. And it's we've seen several acts up here. We've seen Tyler and the Train Robbers and Jeff Crosby and of course Darcy. So they've got a pretty good following, but we need to get more people up here to support them. So it's hard to keep places like this alive. And even in Chalice, the Roadhouse, they were so gracious to let us film all our podcast episodes while we were there for the BBR.
Mm-hmm.
And that's such a cool venue. They've built a really nice place there, and hope that they can keep the doors open.
That was one of my first gigs, was that place. It was called the Chalice Motor Lodge at the time, and it wasn't gussied up like it is now.
No, it's pretty gussied up. It's a beautiful building. Yeah. So tell me, I kind of know a little bit about your musical journey. You come from a very musical family. Musty was your dad.
Correct, yeah.
And was quite an organ player, piano player,
right.
Correct?
Yep.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your family, about your dad, and where that came from.
He was from North Dakota.
Okay.
Strasburg, North Dakota, which is the home of Lawrence Welk.
Right.
Who is a shirt tail relative.
Okay.
So we come from a long line of accordion players. That was my dad's first instrument, was accordion. And then he moved on to piano and organ. And he had different bands after the Army. He actually wound up with a 5-piece band for quite a while, and then he branched off from that and went solo, and he met some people in Weiser, Idaho, and went to Lewiston, Idaho, where I was born. He met my mother. And then we moved to Twin Falls, and he didn't want to, they moved to Twin to go start the 93 Club in Jackpot, Nevada.
Right. I knew that. Yeah.
With the Bartons, and he didn't want to live in Jackpot. Jackpot was just a spot on the road. It was the Cactus Pete's and the 93 Club, and that was all that was there.
Not much more now. There is a golf course there and an airport.
And the kids had to go to school in Contact, Nevada, which was a few miles away. But he wanted us to go to the Catholic school in Twin, so that's where we stayed in Twin. Grew up there and went to high school.
Okay.
And then we started, my brothers and I have 2 brothers, and we started
Gary and Billy.
Yeah.
Right.
We started a band in high school.
Any sisters or just the boys?
2 sisters, but they weren't they are musical, but they never got in front of people.
Sure. Well, that's something that I talked with almost all of the people we interviewed that know your family well, like, Jeff Crosby and Cody Canada, about your family, how amazing it is to me that all 4 of your boys are so incredibly talented. They're all great musicians. They all have great voices. They're just so talented. And how on earth did that happen? Because there's very few families that everybody in the family ends up that way.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, did they love it, or did Muzzie kind of made that priority?
Well, I don't. It's kind of hard to describe. But what happened is, my wife always traveled with me,
mm-hmm.
and then we started having kids. We just took the kids on the road with us, so they just were raised around music,
right,
all the time. And so, as kids emulate what they're around,
Right.
they started singing, and eventually they would, just like little Hattie, Mickey's little daughter, 6-year-old daughter, got up and sang with us at
Right.
the BBR this year.
Right.
The kids would sing as, and then I got them instruments, and they switched instruments around, and they just started playing music that way. And then I started teaching them a little bit more in depth, and next thing you know, we had a band.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
But before that, you traveled with your brothers. So
Right.
Gary and Billy, you
Right.
guys were all in a band together.
But
About
we've had a lot of different configurations over the years. Yeah.
Sure. Sure. Now I know Gary still plays at the BBR, but I've not seen Billy there. I don't know.
And Billy does every once in a while, but he lives in Caldwell. He still plays music for a living.
Okay.
Yeah, he does a one-man band kind of a thing, and Gary
Okay.
plays as a solo, but also plays with his wife Cindy.
Mm-hmm.
But Billy, sometimes he just doesn't like to be around a big crowd. He plays, but he plays in like
Small
coffee
venues.
shops and
Yeah.
wineries, and
Okay.
he likes a smaller venue.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
But he's the most talented of the Braun.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
I think so.
So where's he? Are you the oldest?
I'm the oldest.
You're
and
the
then
oldest,
Gary, and then Billy.
and Billy's the
youngest.
youngest. Okay. So, do they have children that play?
They do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Billy doesn't, but Gary does.
okay.
Yeah, Gary's got 2 sons. Well, he's got 3 kids that all sing and play.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think any of them are really doing it professionally, although they do go out and play some.
Sure. Sure. Well, it's really cool to me that this has gone on for so long. I love music, but I have no natural music ability
Which is
whatsoever.
what keeps us in business.
And exactly. And it keeps us coming back because, there's lots of reasons why music touches everybody, and it touches everyone differently. But I've always loved music, and especially live music. My first concert was Three Dog Night when I was 12 years old,
Wow.
and at ISU, and love them still. Jeremiah Was a Bullfrog. What a great song. Yeah. And then, grew up in the 70s. And so there was lots of great bands and lots of great music to listen to, but loved Jerry Jeff Walker and Mr. Bojangles. And
Yeah.
that's anyway, but you've done a great job with your kids and your family. And the thing that's really impressed me was 40 years. And I've asked this question of everybody interviewed, if anyone knew, and no one's known for sure, but this has got to be one of the oldest festivals in the country. Is it not?
Well, in the state of Idaho, for sure.
For sure.
I mean, probably for this genre of music, which I would say it's more Americana, Americana, red dirt, whatever the category is nowadays. But of that kind of music,
Sure.
I'm sure there's some blues and jazz festivals that are older than 40 years. But for our kind of music outside of Texas,
yeah, for sure.
Oklahoma, maybe. I'm sure that it's up there, because we're not even sure. I think it's older than 40 years, but we can't nail it down.
Well, yeah, I saw that your first one was like 1979 is what I read, and that was for an album release.
That's when we released our first album.
Okay.
And we did a release party in Stanley.
Okay.
And I mean, everybody that was on the album, both of my brothers and my dad.
Okay.
And it was more of a family reunion, but it was a concert. We did a 3-day thing up there just inside the old Mountain Village saloon, which was on the other side of the road. Now it was a great big complex and actually burned down. It was owned by Stan Hara Corporation.
Okay.
And it burned, and then he passed away, and they never rebuilt it, so that's too bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you had the festival for several years in Stanley.
A long time.
Yeah. And then outgrew it, or was there a scheduling conflict, or what happened there?
Oh, without going into the details, we kind of outgrew it. Stanley really didn't need it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a small town with very limited places for people to stay.
Right.
And they have it's a destination spot in the summer for boaters and hikers and fishermen and families and camping, and so they didn't. It wasn't anything that they depended on.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
And so we had a little bit of, I don't know, it wasn't really trouble, but it was just, we needed to find a place where we could stretch it out a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah, so we wound up going to Chalice.
What is the approximate attendance at the BBR now?
I would say it's probably like 3,000
That's
people.
what I was guessing.
And then with staff and all the volunteers and the musicians and everything, there's probably another 300 people a day. I think the most we've had there's like 3,500.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's not overwhelming by any means. I mean, I think the town handles it well.
Yeah, and I think it's a good size for the town.
It's perfect, and those are the kind of and this is what you said you watched the interview with Cody. The cool thing that I love about the BBR is that you literally I can be standing in the crowd and Cody will be standing next to me. You know,
Sure.
they're fans of the music, and most festivals, and he even said that. He said here in Key West are two places you can kind of do that. He said, but most places you can't. You know, logistically, it just doesn't work. You know,
Right.
you're in and out. These guys come and they stay. Most of them come and stay for 2 or 3 days. There's very few of them that come,
Well, in
in
the
and out.
earlier days in Chalice, most of these bands that we brought out from Texas had never been anywhere near this far west.
Right.
And so they came out here and, well, they dug it, So they wanted to stick around and they didn't have other gigs,
Right.
So they hung around, we fed them and
Yeah.
dared them.
Yeah.
And so then the next time they come back, they'd get a job somewhere on the route. And so it's turned out to be it's done good to spread their music around the whole Northwest, I think.
Absolutely. I see these guys, they after the BBR, some go to Colorado, some go north to Montana, and, some go up and play the Old Saloon. Steve Earle was at the Old Saloon, I think a couple of days before. We love that venue. We went up and saw Reckless and Micky and Gary a couple of years ago at the Old Saloon. You guys were there. Yeah. You and Joanne were both there with them. We don't see you don't get too far away from them. I'm sure that at times, obviously when they're really getting, but if they're close to home,
if they're in the vicinity, we'll go see them.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about your music and your songwriting. You've got what, 70 years in this business.
Yeah. Well, not quite that long, but
well, you're a little longer in the tooth than me, but not by much.
Yeah. Well, yeah. My brothers and I, we didn't know that you could make your own records until the forefathers of music making in Idaho for us was a band called Tarwater.
Right. Pinto
Bennett.
You bet.
In Tarwater. And there were bands in the Northwest, Bruce Hauser and Sawmill Creek, and Cow Jazz out of Utah, and the Montana band. And so these guys and they started making their own records, and they didn't have record deals. They just made records. And so we found out that you could make your own record. So we said, well, heck, we'll just make our own record.
Sure.
And we had some people in Twin Falls, a lady that I worked with, that she was making, she had built a little studio in her basement to record a religious album.
Okay.
And so she said, well, why don't you come and make a record here? And so we did. And they wound up buying more equipment to accommodate our needs as recording went on. But that was our first record. And Jake here that's running
the camera. He's the producer this week.
And he did all the artwork.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's the artist, did all the artists for the Braun Brothers 4 or 5 albums that we did under the Braun Brothers.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, he did our logo. That cowboy hat?
Yeah.
That's Jake.
Okay. Good job, Jake. So Jake do you live in Twin Falls then? Or?
I live in Idaho Falls now.
Oh, you're an Idaho Falls guy.
We grew up together in Twin Falls.
Okay. So Jake and I are more neighbors than you and Jake are. Yeah. So, so you did 4 albums with your brothers.
We did 3.
3.
We did 3 as the Braun Brothers. Then later on, they joined in when I started doing records with the boys.
Okay.
They would come in and play.
Yeah.
And those started out as Muzzie and the Little Braun Brothers.
Right.
And we did the first recording we did was a Christmas cut with Kip Adams.
Oh, yeah.
There's a guy you should do.
Oh, no, I need to interview Kip.
Yeah.
I have his number, and he's on my list to call for sure. He's a character. I've met him.
Version.
Yeah. We got to catch him early in the morning.
Yeah. But anyway, we did Micky was either 5 or 6 years old when it was the first recording that we did with the kids. Well, I'm getting nothing for Christmas.
Yeah. Well, I listen because I try and prepare before I come and interview anyone if I get the opportunity. And I know my first memory of you and the boys was at Pomerel Ski Hill.
Wow.
In one winter, I had my kids up there skiing, and you and the boys were playing in the lodge.
In Berlin.
Yeah, that was cool. And I just remember thinking, wow, what a talented bunch of kids. Wish my kids had that kind of talent.
Well, we had the greatest time.
Oh, I'm sure you did.
Yeah.
Yeah. My kids, we once again no music talent, but my kids, we rodeoed, right? So my kids roped and we spent a lot of time on horseback and
got to do things together.
Yeah. Well, that's the important thing. Cody made that reference. He told me about the song that he wrote that has that line in there.
Oh, the all-nighter?
Yeah, the all-nighter. And he said, he gave you credit for that line. And I said, did Muzzie get writing credit on that? And he goes, no, he told me no, he didn't need it. So, but he said, keep them close and tight. Right. Yeah. And that's the important thing about family. And that's, it's just cool. I've watched your boys. I knew them before they went to Texas. I knew of them before they went to Texas. We saw them play in Sun Valley on a few occasions, at a couple of the clubs over there. And then they went to Texas. Cody and Willie went to Texas, and they were there for a couple of years before Gary and Micky joined them, right?
Right. They'd gone to Oregon originally.
Right. They went to Bend to start.
And then they moved to Austin.
Right. But then Micky and Gary followed them down there, and of course it's been but those boys love Idaho. They have their Idaho roots here. I know they have homes here, and they like to spend their spare time here, and this is where they hung out during COVID. So yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about your love of baseball, and I think you pass that on to your boys as well.
Well, played baseball as a kid, and it's the one sport that I actually participated in. I played football, but I never big enough to, when they put shoulder pads on me, they just knocked me out. So,
tipped you over, huh?
It tipped me over.
Yeah.
So baseball wasn't quite as rough, but yeah, we always had a kind of a rivalry between my brothers and I, because they're baseball fans too.
Okay.
And we, just followed the game.
So who's your team?
I'm a Yankee.
You're a Yankee fan. Okay.
I was a Yankee fan from the beginning, so I come by it honestly.
Well,
back in the day, the only way you got to watch baseball was the Saturday afternoon baseball game,
right, or
Sunday, and the Yankees were always in it. So you got to see them more.
Yeah, you got to see them more often than the other teams.
I was their biggest fan during their heyday.
Sure. Well, our family's baseball fans as well. My wife and I actually used to work for the winter home of the Chicago Cubs in Mesa, Arizona, when they'd come for spring training.
I feel your pain.
And now listen, they finally pulled it out. They finally, it only took them 100 years. Sox, huh? Yeah. So, but no, and then my youngest is an absolute baseball nut, Gage. And so his goal, he's 24 years old. His goal is to get to every major league park. I think he's been to 12 already.
Well, Willie is the real baseball nut in our family.
Well, I know you and Willie.
Micky is pretty too. Micky and Gary are both Dodger fans because my brother-in-law is a Dodger fan.
Okay.
And my wife is from Boston.
Okay.
Or she's not from Boston, she's from Massachusetts. So she's a Red Sox fan.
Okay.
She and I have had a rivalry for quite some time.
That sounds like it.
Yeah.
I found it was just easier if my wife and I just cheered for the same team.
Oh, it's just never been in that program.
No, but I know you and Willie wrote the song 42. I got to hear you guys play that at the BBR a couple of years ago, right about the time I want to say you released it, or
I think that's about when you came out.
Yeah, that's a great song. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, like I said, Willie he's a real baseball aficionado, and he really liked Jackie Robinson, and so he was writing a song about it, and he asked me if I wanted to come in on it. So I'll bet we've got 20 verses to that song.
No kidding.
Yeah, it could be a short story.
Yeah.
But anyway, I let him do the editing on it, and then we recorded it together. But it's just a nice story, about a kid that aspires to be not like a player like Jackie Robinson as much as just the
kind of person.
the person, the Jackie
Yeah.
Robinson.
Yeah. He was a great man, great ball player.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, so what's your plans for music and touring? You just going to keep going?
I am. I don't really have a choice. You know, they don't give you a choice.
Right.
Either if you retire, then and quit, you lose your capabilities. You know, your fingers don't work, your voice doesn't work.
Sure.
And so I really don't go out and look for jobs.
Sure.
If the phone rings, I usually take the gig if
Yeah.
it's workable. You know,
Sure.
like this gig here in Bone was built around. I had a festival in Island Park tomorrow.
Right.
They canceled.
I saw that. Yeah.
So that's I had tied this in to that because it's just an hour away.
Right.
And so when that canceled, I said, "Well, I'm still going to Bone."
Well, you got to come to Bone. This
Gotta
is
go to Bone.
this
I've
is
got
such
to
a
Bone
cool
anyway.
place. There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is such a fun little venue, and Amanda and Corey are such great people.
They're
and,
great. Yeah.
I saw them at the BBR. They came up, and in fact, the last two, I didn't go a year ago. We weren't at the BBR because we have a family reunion conflict, and it's really tough to decide whether or not to go to the family reunion or go to the BBR. So, but luckily we were able to come this year. But a little bit on that note, you talked about it's tough. They don't let you retire. I actually found myself suddenly and unexpectedly retired the 1st of July. And that's why I've started this podcast for something to do.
Well, good for you.
And because of our love of music and especially live music. But I also, before I knew I was going to be retired in July, in December, I decided I was going to force myself to start playing the guitar again. I started 50 years ago, but didn't stick with it.
Oh, wow.
But I play every day now, and it's just brought a lot of joy into my life, and I'm sure having a lot of fun with it. So anyway, any other good stories you want to share with me? Or I know you got, I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to sit down with me and visit.
No, I think we've covered.
Okay. One other thing I'm going to ask you, though, there's a guitar sitting behind you.
Yeah.
Would you play me a little song? And any other good stories you want to share with me? Or I know you got, I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to sit down with me and visit.
No, I think we've covered.
Okay. One other thing I'm going to ask you, though, there's a guitar sitting behind you.
Yeah.
Would you play me a little song? And
Yeah, I guess I could, if I can play it.
well,
What do you got?
it's a Teton, an Idaho company. They're in Idaho Falls. And I've had everybody I've interviewed, I've had them play it, sing me a little song, and it should be in fairly good tune. Of course, I tuned it, so it might be really screwed up. But you got good ears.
Yeah, let's see. It's called "Keep Your Eye on the Ball."
Okay.
It might be the ninth inning. It could be the last call. Don't look backwards, just look inward. Keep your eye on the ball. Don't always swing for the fences. You don't have to touch them all. Keep your head in the game, kid. Keep your eye on the ball. Oh, you might have done better, but you could have done worse. Over all things considered, game's a blessing, not a curse. Don't always swing for the fences. You don't have to touch them all. Keep your head in the game, kid. Keep your eye on the ball. You don't always swing for the fences. You don't have to touch them all. Just keep your head in the game, kid. Keep your eye on the ball.
That's a great song. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.